I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the biggest true crime mystery in the nation, the unsolved murder of JonBenét Ramsey. Now, a new Netflix series has many hopeful that the case may soon be solved. Here's the story. It's the highest profile unsolved case in the nation. It's been the subject of many theories and investigations, none of which have resulted in a successful arrest. On December 26, 1996, 6-year-old JonBenét Ramsey was found dead in her family's home in Boulder, Colorado. Her parents, John and Patsy Ramsey, had reported her missing early that morning. Patsy Ramsey found a lengthy handwritten ransom note in the house addressed to her husband, John. About 7 hours after police arrived to investigate the kidnapping, JonBenét's body was found hidden behind a latched door in the basement of the home by her father, John. And now, a new Netflix documentary has everyone talking about the case again, making many believe it can be solved. And now, as the investigation continues, John Ramsey and the rest of the world wait for an answer. You know, this case goes back, right back to 1996. I mean, this has been around a long, long time. And there were many moments where we thought something was going to happen, that there was going to be a successful arrest, a prosecution, an answer to this mystery, but it has never materialized. It has never materialized. I want you to take a look at this, though. Now that this Netflix series is out, everyone's talking about it again. Here's what the New York Post is reporting. Cops in Colorado are following up on dozens of leads in the JonBenét murder case, and they are quietly hoping that they are close to finding a resolution. Two investigative sources tell the Post. I'm not sure what it will take to bust it wide open, an investigator said, but it feels like it's within reach. We're hoping for 2025. This is our year. Another police source said that new Boulder Police Chief, Steve Redfern, who took over in early 2024, is now turning his attention to the case. He wants it solved and off the books, and he's assigning officers and resources to solving the murder, which has been a black mark on the Boulder PD. Oh, it's been a black mark, absolutely. I mean, almost from the beginning. But all of this talk and this renewed attention, not just by folks on social media, not just by Netflix, but by Boulder PD, brings us to the first question of our investigation, which is, why now? Why now? What's going on? Got special guests who are going to help us with all of this tonight. And we begin with a very special guest. JonBenét Ramsey's father, John Ramsey, is with us. And also joining us, Laboratory Director for Pure Gold Forensics. She has more than 20 years of experience in DNA analysis, forensic DNA expert, Susanna Ryan. Thank you both. John, I'll begin with you. Just your reaction to these words from the new Boulder Police Chief. Does it give you hope, or have you heard this before?
Well, we haven't heard it before, and so, yes, it does give me hope. You know, the two things have happened in the Boulder Police Department in the last year or so that were significant. Oversight Board recommended termination of 5 of their 7 detectives for poor performance, one of which was the detective that handled our case for 25 years. That was a big step forward because he was not productive. The second big step was to bringing in a new police chief from outside the system. And that I viewed as very significant. And we met with the new police chief. We just wanted to, the problem that the police, fundamental problem. I didn't criticize them for not having experience. They didn't even have a homicide department. But they refused help from people that could have helped, that had experience, and that was a fatal flaw in the solution of this case. So we're starting from 28 years later, but if they will accept help that's there and offered, and collaborate with them, I think it can be solved, particularly in the DNA arena.
Well, let's talk about the DNA for a second. From your perspective, like, nobody knows the case better than you, John. I mean, the investigators know it, but I mean, this you lived it. This is your life. What DNA are we specifically talking about? Because then I want Susanna to kind of jump in and talk about what can be done.
Yeah, good. Well, DNA was recovered very early, within weeks, by Bodie Labs, which is a DNA lab. It was unidentified male DNA, and that's been on the books since January 1997. When the district attorney took over the case from the police in 2006, she did additional testing using, at that time, the latest technology. Basically confirmed there was more of this same DNA, I guess, on other parts of JonBenét's clothing and other pieces of evidence. And that's when she formally cleared our family and apologized. What we want the police to do today, and I've met with, there's several very cutting edge labs that would like to help in this case, but they have to be invited to help. And I've met with 2 of them. The technology has advanced dramatically in the last 8 years since the last testing was done. And they believe that they can help. And what I'd like to have happen is evidence be retested that's been tested, and evidence has never been tested. Develop a sample, hopefully, that's in the to do familial genealogy research, which has been wildly successful in other cold cases, and employ that technique. I believe if they do that, there's a pretty good chance it could be solved. Lou Smith, which is probably the most experienced detective that's ever worked on this case, and he worked on it till he died 10 years ago, said this will be solved by DNA. This case will be solved by DNA. And he was saying that 20 it's time for that to happen.
Okay, Susanna, you're our DNA expert. Explain to us, first of all, the developments in the last 8 years, the developments in the last 28 years, and what retesting and testing of some evidence that has never been tested could do, and can you still do it if something is 28 years old?
Absolutely, you can. Yeah, I've worked on cases that have been 50 or even 60 years old and gotten DNA profiles. So that's not the issue at all. And the thing that we have to be aware of is that the sensitivity, the chemistries that are used are so much more sensitive now than they were even, a few years ago. The instrumentation is more sensitive. And we have methods today that are better at collecting DNA. So one of the things that I would definitely recommend is that we use an instrument called the MVAC. It's a wet vacuum. It collects DNA. It's been shown that the FBI did a study and found that the MVAC could collect between 12 and 200 times more DNA as compared to a swab. And we have samples in this case that would be excellent for that. Things like the ligatures, things like JonBenét's clothing. We already know that there's unidentified male DNA on that clothing. Looking at the results today, I'm looking at these results that were done even back in 2008, right? You have an unknown male, and it's not just on one item. So it's on the long johns, and that unknown male was compared to an unknown male profile developed by the Denver Police Department that was said to be from her underwear. So now you have this same male on 2 different items. So that makes it less likely that it's a contamination.
So I want to take a listen to the Boulder police chief, because he did speak about what they are doing. Why now? Let's take a listen.
For years, our detectives have partnered with multiple agencies across the country, including our federal and state partners like the FBI and the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, as well as several outside forensic labs and DNA experts, to evaluate the latest advancements in technology, viable tips, and investigative leads. Our collaboration also includes the Colorado Cold Case Review Team, which is a panel of outside experts brought together in December of 2023 to review this case. generate additional investigative recommendations, and determine if updated technologies and/or forensic testing might produce new intelligence or leads to solve this case. That review took a year to prepare for and included an intensive effort to digitize all evidence to create a comprehensive and searchable database containing thousands of information files. Those files include more than 21,000 tips, over 1,000 interviews, which were conducted across 17 states and 2 foreign countries, samples from more than 200 different individuals, including handwriting, DNA, fingerprints, and shoe prints, nearly 2,500 pieces of evidence, and roughly 40,000 reports with more than 1 million pages documenting the investigation. A fresh inventory of all collected evidence was made available for investigative review, which would not have been possible without the assistance of the FBI. The Cold Case Review Panel gave us a lengthy list of recommendations, which we are continuing to work through and evaluate. And though that review may have ended, our collaboration with those entities continues to this day.
Okay, John, as I listen to the new chief speak here, it sounds like they're doing everything they could possibly do. From your perspective, are they?
Well, you know, that's the first time I've ever heard a pretty detailed definition or detail of what they're doing. The last time, one step, this poor chief, and I told him this, I said, look, it's not fair for me to criticize your police department. You didn't create this mess, but you can fix it. So I apologize for being critical, but I don't know that you're doing all that can be done. He's a good guy. I like him. I've talked to him several times. I hope what he said is 100% accurate. I don't have any reason to doubt that it isn't. But let's see what the results are. You know, we were told by the FBI, oh gosh, a year ago or so, they said, look, the government doesn't have the latest DNA technology, sampling technology yet. You need to go to an outside lab. And then the FBI may have it now, but I'm just so passionate about that they need to go to an outside lab. One of these very, you know, there's handful of in the world that can do this well. And that's where they need to go. They can't keep it in-house anymore. You know, that's what we're asking. And then go to this genealogy database. You know, the FBI database is relatively small. It's felons and rapists, basically. And some states don't even contribute to it. The samples in the CODIS database, it's not yielded a hit. I'm told, is that the sample we have in CODIS isn't compatible or isn't the right format to do genealogy research. I don't know this. Perhaps, Suzanne, you can comment.
Suzanne, we have about 30 seconds if you could tie a bow on it for us.
Right, so that's correct. Genealogy requires a different type of testing. In many cases, it doesn't work because you have too much of a mixture. But from what I've seen from the results they already have, it looks like this actually might be a good candidate, assuming that we can get more sample from the long johns or from the underwear, and then that can be sent to a genealogy lab to do the SNP testing. And I think that's how this case is going to be solved.
Susanna Ryan, thank you so much. John Ramsey is going to stay with us. Coming up next, how could someone break into that house?
It's a fairly large house, and to know where JonBenét's bedroom was and the room that we found her in is in a kind of a remote part of the basement.
Weeknights on Court TV.
I'm Vinnie Politan. Welcome to Closing Arguments. We have a big hour ahead here.
Your deplorable actions are unforgivable.
The community still doesn't know how this Boston police officer died.
He can't prove one element of his case.
It was a dramatic day, a dramatic moment inside the courtroom.
What's happening here?
It's unreal. Let me show you exactly what happened.
Closing Arguments with Vinnie Politan. Weeknights at 8, 7 Central. Only on Court TV.
The
fact that it was put on your back stairs, a route that you frequently take, would indicate, I would think, that whoever it was familiar with your patterns.
Well, that's certainly our suspicion for several reasons. One, it's a fairly large house, and to know where JonBenét's bedroom was and the room that we found her in is in a kind of remote part of the basement.
So again,
I don't go in that room more than
A casual guest would not know where that room is. It's a back cellar kind of out of the way.
The scene itself, such an important part of this story and this mystery and the evidence in the case. This house is very, very unique, which brings us to our next question in the investigation, and it's about the house itself. How could someone break into the house? How? Where? Where are the ways that you could enter the home? Still with us, JonBenét Ramsey's father, John Ramsey, and joining us now, private investigator with more than 20 years experience, Jason Jensen. I want to show you guys a couple of things and then get your response to it. We begin, this is from 60 Minutes Australia. The investigator, John, that you mentioned, Lou Smith, big part of the investigation of this case, him crawling through the window into the basement from the outside. I also, and there we can see those images right there, again, from 60 Minutes Australia. Dramatic part of the Netflix series that everyone's talking about, but this is something that's been known and been part of the story for years. The other thing I want to show you, this is from the Denver Post, September 2016, going back a few years, the basement floor plan. And when you look to the top there, you can see where that area is that we were just looking at, where that broken window was. That's sort of in the top middle part of the drawing. Then you go to the bottom left-hand part. That's where JonBenét was found, in that wine cellar. You've got an unidentified palm print, unidentified footprint, but really trying to focus in on how someone could get inside the house. So, John, from your perspective, is that what you're thinking about? You're thinking about that entranceway into the basement, and what was the status of the window? Was it broken? Was it not broken? Was there glass there? Was it on the inside, the outside? What do you remember?
Well, the window is open, and more important, I think, was that there was a suitcase under it that was on its edge to serve as kind of a step, I think. And I told the police that suitcase should not have been there. I also told them that I used that window 6 months before to get in the house. I'd left my key, and Patsy was not home. I broke the window and crawled through that window. Steve Thomas, the so-called detective that worked on this case, said nobody could fit through that window. Well, I did, and so did Lou Smith. But the window was open and it was broken. And I told the police, I said, look, the window should not have been open. It was the middle of the winter. That suitcase should not have been under the window to serve as perhaps a step. I may have broken the window. We may not have ever fixed it. We never went in the basement. I assumed that Patsy had it repaired, but perhaps not. But it shouldn't have been open. And so that was the fact that there was a suitcase propped up to provide a step to get up to the window. I thought was, it shouldn't have been there, and it looked suspicious. The other thing I learned later, when I was interviewed by the police early on, there was a side door that they found open that morning when they came to the house. I didn't know that. That was a door we never used, and the fact that they found it open that morning was a surprise. I didn't know that.
Jason Jensen, as you're hearing all of this, right? You could come in the house one way and exit a different way, but that suitcase to me significant. And if you've got an open side door, extremely significant as well.
Exactly. One of the early determinations in this case is there was no sign of forced entry. Well, if you can open up a broken window, it doesn't necessarily have to be forced. All he had to do was just simply lift the grate, as Lou Smith has demonstrated for TV in the past, climb down into the window well, and just simply enter the window. One of the biggest problems that they had was that they claimed that you couldn't go in without disturbing cobwebs. Well, that's not so. We do know that Lou Smith demonstrated that from the photographic evidence that there was disturbed leaf and other debris that was cleared away from that window, indicating to most of us that that was, some form of entry point. And then one of the things that John overlooked mentioning is there was broken fragments of glass that was sitting on that edge, the locking side of the suitcase, that was at the bottom on the floor below the window. So how did the glass get there if not for somebody opening and closing a broken window, where clearly a suitcase was placed where it wasn't supposed to be? John told me in an interview in the past that was actually moved from the furnace room to that room, the back side of the train room. It wasn't there before.
Yeah, a lot of this, we're talking 28 years later. Like, this is stuff should be December 26th. It should be talking about this back in 1996. John and Jason are going to stay with us. Coming up next, who wrote the ransom note? I'm Vinnie Politan as we continue our investigation into the murder of JonBenét Ramsey, a young girl who was murdered in her own home the day after Christmas. It's a case that gripped the nation more than 2 decades ago and once again is in the headlines. Here's the story. On the morning of December 26, 1996, Patsy Ramsey found an odd handwritten note. She started to read it, and quickly, she was horrified. It was a ransom note for her 6-year-old daughter, JonBenét. She called out for her husband, John. When they did not find her in her bedroom, they called 911. What happened over the next 7 hours was more than unusual. The home was not sealed off, and people were walking all over the crime scene in the home. Then, John Ramsey was asked by police to go through the house again, and that's when he found his daughter dead in the crevices of the basement. Suddenly, this case went from a kidnapping to the highest profile murder case in the country. And now, more than 2 decades later, the case remains unsolved. From the beginning, one of the most unusual parts of this case is how it went from an alleged kidnapping into a murder mystery because of this handwritten ransom note that was found. Take a listen to Patsy Ramsey talking about finding that note.
We have a back staircase from the bedroom areas, and I always come down that staircase, and I'm usually the first one down. And the note was lying across the run of one of the stair treads. And it was kind of dimly lit because it was very early in the morning. And I started to read it, and it was addressed to John.
A terrifying message scrawled across 3 pages.
It said, "We have your daughter."
And here's a look at the note. I mean, 3 pages of rambling. It doesn't make a ton of sense, but it includes such statements as, Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals who represent a small foreign faction. At this time, we have your daughter. You will withdraw $118,000 from your account. Again, a peculiar amount of money, but 3 pages. And this, again, probably the biggest mysterious piece of evidence in the whole thing, because it doesn't make sense. And that brings me to my next question in our investigation. Who wrote the ransom note, right? I guess that solves the case if you know who wrote the ransom note, but that's another way, another avenue to try to find the killer in this case. Special guest with us, JonBenét Ramsey's father, John Ramsey, is with us, and also with us, private investigator with more than 20 years of experience, Jason Jensen, who's spent a lot of time taking a look at this case. John, let me begin with you. $118,000. What's the significance of that number? Where does that come from? What are your thoughts? And what are you thinking when you're reading this rambling note for the very first time?
Well, I was horrified when I was reading the note. I don't know how else to put it. The note, I've been told by handwriting experts, with a 3-page dissertation, basically, which this note was, we can match the writer easy if we have the writer's handwriting. That's a massive amount of sample. Number of handwriting experts were consulted by us and the police. As far as I know, all of them said, I absolutely did not write the note. On a scale of 1 to 5, I was a 5. 5 is absolutely no way. 1 is absolutely yes. Patsy was a 4.5. They said, you know, sometimes there's ways you were learned to write that are based on your age, school you went to, or wherever you lived. But they said, they told the police, boys, you better look somewhere else. The parents did not write this note. The police ignored that. But the $118,000, the only logical thing I can pin that to is my bonus that year, which was awarded in January 1996. It was on every pay stub I got, you know, every month till December as an item. And if somebody knew that fact or had seen one of my pay stubs laying around the house, they would have, maybe that's where the number came from. You know, John Douglas, the fellow that started the whole FBI crime profiling program years ago, said, John, this is not about JonBenét. My assessment of who did this is that somebody that was very angry at you or very jealous of you, and that was a hard pill to swallow. But that sort of ties in to me with the 118. If somebody was jealous or felt that was not right, who knows? I mean, this obviously is a very demented, crazy person that did this. This is a horrible crime for anyone to commit.
Absolutely. And I wanted to show everyone Gary Oliva, John, if I could, because his name has popped up through the years. He's a known sex offender who lived in Boulder at the time of this murder. We had a man, and I think, Jason Jensen, you helped hook us up with him, Michael Vale, who's Gary Oliva's former classmate, spoke to him. Take a listen to what he said about Gary Oliva back in 1996.
It was December 26th, and it was about midnight, and I get that phone call, and it's Gary's voice, and he's like, oh, I just heard, little girl, like it was the most terrifying. I'm getting goosebumps just now telling you guys this because it was terrifying, and I immediately jumped into protective mode. Oh, where are you? What's your address? What's your phone number? And he kind of caught on to me, but he told me he was in Boulder. Next morning, I get to the LA Times on the newspaper on my front porch. It's 6, 7 in the morning. I flip the newspaper open, and there it is on the back side. It says, girl 6 slain in Boulder, Colorado. And I knew something serious had happened that night. I knew something serious had happened. I go, wow, he actually killed a girl. And that's when I called that number. Right then and there, I called that phone number. And I sat back and, when you call the police, they're going to do something, right? I mean, that's their job. They investigate tips, right? And here's my solid gold tip.
Absolutely chilling. Now, Michael and Gary, Gary was writing letters to Michael through the years, like years and years. And what you're looking at right now is the ransom note on the left side and one of the letters that Gary Oliva sent to Michael Vale. And, if you look closely at it, as a non-expert, you look at it and say, well, it looks, there's some similarities there. Well, we took it one step further. We spoke with Moselle Martin, who's a forensic handwriting expert, to get an expert's opinion on Gary Oliva's handwriting versus the ransom note.
When you overlay them, though, some of these weird little strokes that are awkward, that are not common, like a little bend in the T stem or an arch in the H, those are unique to that individual. So when you overlay them, they line up so well. That's a really loud announcement in my profession. The L's, I was so excited when I saw the L's because it just has so much difference in the visual aspect of it. But when we overlay them, I was so excited. I yelled at my husband and I said, you have to see these L's, and he doesn't know anything about handwriting. But when you overlay them, there is just no denying that they are made with the same stroke. It has the same, the same bend in the stems. It has the same spacing between the stems that also line up. So they are very distinct. So for me, I use a 5-point scale, which basically 5 would say, absolutely, there's no way possible this person could have written this, in my opinion. Again, this is just my opinion. So for this, I would be at about a 1.75. I would love to have seen more handwriting, but we can only work with what we have access to. But based on everything that I looked for and looked at, I had dozens and dozens of samples of Gary's. I started at 250, went up to 225, then was at a 2, and then ended at 175.
So what does 175 mean again?
Means pretty close to certain, but you can never say 100%.
Jason Jensen, what are your thoughts about the handwriting analysis and everything connected to Gary Oliva?
Well, I honestly think that Dr. Moselle Martin can actually lower that score to be more certain if she had the opportunity to see the original ransom note, because pressure on original paper is often a key that's unique to a person's handwriting. We have the original writing, that other one that you compared with, we call that the coupon letter. And what's also interesting is most of the world, looking at the ransom note that we see online and which are shown right now, it looks like white paper and people assume it's 8.5 by 11, but the reality is it was written on a junior legal pad, a yellow pad, that's 5.5 by 8. And we know for a fact that Gary knew that, which, the killer would know that. How did Gary know that? But we know that from a 2019 telephone call that he made from prison to Michael Vale, and he revealed that particular detail that I found striking. Other things that were unique is the phrasing. Like, for instance, on this ransom note, it says, listen carefully. We know that's an auditory command. It's not a written command. For it to be written out as listen carefully is unique to that writer, to that author. And one of the things I asked Michael to do, because there was hundreds of letters that he's received over the year, is I asked him, go through your files, see if there's other writings where he instructed you to listen carefully in a written document. Sure enough, it wasn't very long at all, and he produced such a document that said, listen carefully. So I believe very strongly that law enforcement needs to take a second look at Gary, because even though they claim there's no match in the DNA, to me, that's an easy explanation, because we know that there was duct tape found on this little girl's face that Mr. Ramsey removed. His DNA was on the duct tape, so was Fleet White's, but not the unknown male. So we believe that he had gloves on. So you're not going to match the perpetrator by DNA. I don't think it's a DNA case, but I do think the handwriting is significant and can resolve the case.
John, before we run out of time tonight, I want to thank you so much for joining us, first of all. We always appreciate your time. And I hope the next time, or at some point when I'm talking to you, it's about an arrest. And then I'm at a courthouse somewhere and we're spending time together there. Where are you right now personally on the possibility of that happening?
I think if the police will use the latest technology, DNA sampling technique, develop a sample that's compatible with genealogy research and do that research, I think there's a good chance that we can solve this fairly quickly. I really do.
There's so many people, watching at home now that are hoping and praying for that moment as well. John Ramsey, thank you so much. Jason, Jensen, always appreciate your valuable time. We'll see you again really, really soon. Okay, up next. Could a suspect in this case ever be convicted if there's an arrest?
While we cannot go back to that horrible day in 1996, our goal is to find JonBenét Ramsey's killer.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan.
In every story, in every trial, every case, there's at least two sides to it.
To dive into the latest.
Oh my God.
And breaking true crime stories.
This was a very targeted, very personal attack.
Inside.
I've never seen that in Discovery. I've been incarcerated 3 years.
And outside of the courtroom.
She's a psychopath.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates. Weeknights, 9/8 Central. Only on Court TV.
This horrible crime happened in December of 1996, and our officers responded to investigate. While I was not at Boulder Police 28 years ago, I have worked in policing for more than 20 years, and I want to assure you that our agency is committed to doing everything we can to bring justice to JonBenét and hold her killer responsible. So much of how law enforcement works has changed in the last 30 years. There are a number of things that people have pointed to throughout the years that could have been done better, and we acknowledge that is true. However, it is important to emphasize that while we cannot go back to that horrible day in 1996, our goal is to find JonBenét Ramsey's killer. Our commitment to that has never wavered.
Yeah, things could have been done much better. As we sit here tonight, 28 years, a botched crime scene. You have a focus that was solely on the parents from the beginning, so much so that many people early on investigating it were pointing the finger at them, wanted them indicted. Remember the whole John Mark Carr thing, the guy they brought back from Thailand, the unknown DNA. With all of this, in this 28-year-old case, brings me to my next question in our investigation, which is, could a suspect ever be convicted? Like if they came up with a suspect and arrested someone, could they convict them in a courtroom? Joining me, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, led the high-profile defense of George Zimmerman. Mark O'Mara is back with us. Great to see you, Mark. And former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani. It's amazing to have you two guys on here because these are two of the smartest lawyers. And I don't want to offend all the other guests I have, but these two are really, really smart. Let me ask you, I'll start with you, Mark. From your perspective, with this checkered history and everything else, could a case be proven beyond a reasonable doubt in front of a jury?
So our lawyers answer yes and no. Yes, only if they come up with some compelling piece of evidence that does not exist yet. We have talked about touch DNA evidence maybe being the possibility, but without something as conclusive as that and as corroborating to other evidence, like maybe the handwriting analysis, other pieces of evidence that are out there, without some true death knell piece of new evidence, then you're right, Vinnie. Everything that has happened in this case and happened inappropriately, inaccurately, maybe incompetently, is going to come back by some good defense attorney like me or somebody else to say there is no compelling way that you can convict somebody beyond a reasonable doubt with 28 years of not being able to do it. Not to mention the loss of evidence, the loss of forensic evidence, memories, all of that. It's not going to happen unless there is some piece of evidence that a defense attorney cannot get around.
Nima, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think a suspect could ever be convicted in this case if they make an arrest and bring somebody into court?
Vinny, thanks for the kind words, and I agree with Mark. That's why he's so smart. Absent some really solid DNA match, and I'm talking about the blood mixture on JonBenét's underwear, not the touch or trace DNA on the paintbrush handle or the cord. It's going to be very difficult to convict someone. The handwriting analysis has been all over the place. Going to be tough. The boot, that mark is long gone. The boot is gone. So absent some admission, confession, or very solid DNA match, Vinny, we're not going to be able to get a conviction in this case because, like you said, so much time has passed and most of the forensic evidence has been contaminated or just is gone.
Mark, let me ask you what that trial would look like. I mean, John Ramsey was just on the program. He's going to be inside that courtroom. Is it going to be the defense just pointing the finger at him and Patsy and the family?
You know, first of all, it's going to be a fiasco. We know that this will gear right back up 28 years later if and when there's ever a courtroom focused on this case. But beyond that, you know, defense attorneys have to be a bit careful, right? We don't want to just say it was mom, it was dad, it was anybody else but my client. But I would focus on the investigation if I was the defense attorney. Maybe mom, maybe dad, maybe brother, I don't know. But the cops were so incompetent back then that all they're trying to do is fix their mistakes now at my client's, you know, luxury in effect. So you want to be careful blaming people. And I don't think you need to blame people as a good defense team. But I think I would focus on 28 years of why are we here now? Where was it before? Where's the new evidence? All they're really doing is trying to close a cold case that everyone's still talking about, but don't do it around my client's neck.
Nima, how do you, let me ask you this. Do you think we get to that point where, you know, do you think there ever will be that arrest?
Vinny, it can be done. We've seen how strong these familial DNA matches are, right? BTK, Golden State Killer, more recently, right? Brian Koberger, right? Familial DNA match. Sherry Papini. So the DNA technology has really advanced. If there is a definitive strong match, absolutely, I think we can get there. The question is, obviously, is there a relative whose DNA is in the database that matches the DNA that was found at the scene, particularly on JonBenét's clothes? I think that's really the only possible way we get there. And if we do get there and the DNA is there and there's a motive, means, opportunity, there's a chance at a conviction. But I think it's really the only chance, and it's threading the needle here.
All right. I want to thank both of you, Mark O'Mara and Nima Rahmani. And here's the thing. If there is an arrest and there is a trial, I'm booking you guys so we can analyze this case from start to finish. If Mark isn't representing someone, we'll just see how that works out. Great to see you both. Thanks so much. There's no doubt this case should have been solved. Investigators botched the crime scene. That's a problem. Investigators had tunnel vision. That's a problem. And investigators didn't get the help that they needed. It's time for the truth now, folks. And it's time for justice for JonBenét. This little girl was tortured. This little girl was murdered, and no one has been brought to justice for it. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.